And we are live.
Good.
Hello, everybody. Um, this is hopefully, maybe the first um, joint meetups groups with the Dutch group and the Angular Birmingham group, which is awesome. Now I'm gonna hand it over to Bonnie to introduce you to the rest of the team and the talk. Thank you.
All right. Well, first I want to introduce Jeffrey Bosch, who is the host of the Dutch Angular group. Before we jump into that, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Bonnie. Yeah, welcome everybody. It's good to see that we have in this pandemic still have collaborations and good sessions together, right? That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. I want to tell you all a little insider tidbit about the Dutch Angular group because I moved to the Netherlands last year with my daughter and immediately went to Sander and said, hey, Sander, we should be friends. We're neighbors now. And then we found Jeffrey and said we should resurrect the Dutch Angular group. And Jeffrey took it and ran with it and made it what it is today. So hats off to Jeffrey because Sander and I are on the organizing team, but really Jeffrey is the one that makes it happen and does all the work. And Sander and I just kind of attend sometimes and say, okay, hi, we're Dutch too. But Jeffrey's amazing and he's really taken that group and made it what it is. So it's really impressive. But let's not get mushy.
Aw.
So, and I want to introduce, if you guys don't already know, Sander Elias, who is really a smart dude and also awesome, really super cool. Yes. And you might not know my child component, Samantha Brennan, who also put together everything for today. So I want to start out really. Sander and I, this talk started out because Sander and I were bummed because of the coronavirus and we were talking about how we miss hanging out with people. And so we wanted to do a talk just basically to make the rounds and say hi to y'all. And then we were talking about what to talk about. And I said, maybe we could do something about RxJS because I know Sander's like really good at that kind of stuff. And he just has done some really cool, RxJS talks. And he said, actually, even to go a little bit further down, like to go to the core of that is like async and sync. And I think, Sander, you explain it really better. You want to talk about like kind of the first time, like where this talk came from, because you brought this up and said a lot of people misunderstand this.
Yeah, we were talking about getting a subject and I said, yeah, we should really go to the basics because most people don't understand the whole sync versus async stuff. And they don't know what's going on in the browser. And then you go, yeah, but everyone understands async and it is this and this. And it turned out you didn't know.
Confused, but didn't even know you're confused.
Yeah.
So Sander told me to go watch a talk and we're going to show you what the talk is here in a minute. And then I came back, I watched the talk and I felt like it made sense. It was about the JavaScript event loop. And then I came back to talk to Sander. And we started talking through like how we're going to apply this to Angular and how we're going to show this in our talk. And we're going to talk about this. And then immediately Sander starts explaining to me that I'm still confused. And I was like, no, I'm not confused. I've been doing this for years. I know what I'm talking about. And I actually thought Sander was confused, but he was not. So the part about like it's synchronous, but it's not quite, it's like synchronous, but asynchronous at the same time. Can you mention that real quick, Sander? How did you explain that to me?
Well, JavaScript is a top-to-bottom language. If you start a program, it runs top-to-bottom. It goes to the first instruction, does the instruction, goes to the next line, does the instruction, and so on. And that is very synchronous. But everyone is calling, yeah, but JavaScript is all async. Actually, not so much. It's a sync language. It has one thread, it does one thing at a time, and it works according to plan, top to bottom. No async there anywhere. And then Bonnie said,
because that seems so simple, but then there's more because it's single threaded, but it's not.
It's a single threaded event loop that is working in an async environment. And it is talking to this async environment piecemeal. And that makes it a little bit more difficult to grasp. What happens is if you are doing a set timeout, basically you are talking to the browser and say, hey, browser, I want you to do a set timeout. And the browser says, yeah, sure. And you step to the next line. And people don't realize that there is no waiting there. It just goes to the next line in the code. Well, We will go over this a little bit deeper in our slides.
This is where I think this was about the time that I said, okay, Sander, stop. I think we need help. And I said, Samantha, can you come and join us? Because you're going to have to be a part of this talk, and you're going to have to help us visualize exactly what Sander just said, because it's really hard to imagine. Like, it's all this, it's synchronous, but it's asynchronous. How does that work? Sam, can you share your screen? Sam actually is the one I want y'all to know who did pretty much all of the work for this talk, because there's very little code, and it's not, the code's not terribly complicated, because this is kind of something that's happening under the hood. And we really tried to show this and keep it very simple, so you could just see like the core functionality of JavaScript. But really, you'll see.
So visually, we are talking about the stack. So we did introductions. This is us. And I realized today that the dream team, it has been, that term has been coined for a different dream team. So I need to change that. So if anybody knows a slogan for a really good team, let me know. Okay, so we discussed JavaScript being synchronous, but also having asynchronous functionality in there. And it is very confusing. And
this is the talk that he told me to watch.
Yes, it is great. And I highly recommend watching it. It explains a lot, but it didn't help me remember the event loop or how it applies to Angular.
Well,
how it will affect you in your everyday
it
job,
really goes into the event loop. It really explains how the event loop works, and it goes over JavaScript too, but it really doesn't explain how the JavaScript works in the whole system. We are going to focus solely on the JavaScript part, and for the rest of the whole event loop thing, go watch this talk, because this talk is really awesome. There is even a visually better one done by Jake Archibald, which is based on this talk. Go watch them both. And then you will understand everything what's there to know about the event loop. But JavaScript has a distinct part in this. And I go back to Sam.
And here we are. So the first example is, this is very simple. You have, nothing is affecting each other. They're just one line after each other. So on the right, we have the animation. On the left, we have the code. Each box goes with one line of code. So each box is a task, essentially. Correct me if I'm wrong. And yeah, so let's play this here. So, okay, one more thing. The box on the top is the stack, and the box on the bottom, the shelf is the queue. So the shelf on the top, the stack, and the shelf on the bottom is the task queue.
Task, yes.
So we will see each box being popped up onto the stack, and then it goes off after it's completed. And it's super simple. No questions here. Yeah?
Yeah, I took this piece of code out of an enterprise application I was working on. You can really see it shines through.
Super productive.
Yeah, it was super productive. Really, you can see the whole top to bottom thing going on. And Sam mentioned the stack a little bit. The stack will be a little bit more visible on the next slide, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so now we have functions that call other functions. It's exciting here. So there we go. So we go up the stack. Callback, would this be a callback function? Functions that call other functions? There's debate about callback. So I've heard it used in multiple ways. Sander, do you want to help me here?
Yes, this has nothing to do with callbacks.
Great.
No. So callbacks are out of scope. I will explain them if you want to, but basically a callback is you give a function another function to say, hey, go do something with this later on.
This is just going up the stack, and then it's going back down the stack.
Yeah.
All right, so callbacks will be introduced later. No. Yes. Yeah. Yes. This is very exciting. Here. So this is where it gets a little bit, things are leaving the, let's just play it. So
this is where we first introduced the asynchronous behavior.
Yes, there are now two queues. And
so now
everything-
what we're showing on this, because we have this little ball that drops off, right? And this is really where I thought we needed because can we watch this a couple times, Sam? Because one of the things, this is really where I think when we're talking about there's more than one task queue, right? And this is something that I had never really heard anybody talk about before, and I wasn't paying any attention. I've been writing JavaScript for years. I don't care about any of this kind of stuff. But the thing is, it's actually kind of important to understand how this works, because when this is where, remember I said before we started, I thought Sander was confused. I was like, Sander, are you sure you know what you're talking about? Which I was like, I'm pretty sure Sander knows what he's talking about because I've known him for a long time. But he was telling me that the set timeout, like once it goes, so basically, if we look at that animation again, the thing that I thought was weird in this one, can you play it again, Sam? Will it loop? Okay, can you stop the animation for a second? If there you go. If the orange set timeout finishes, because I think Sander, we have a while loop in here. If the orange one finishes before the green one, then would the orange one fire off before the green or before the blue? And Sander said no, it can't. Right?
It can.
And this is where the whole second task queue comes into play. Do you want to talk through that, Sander, or do you want to wait until the next slide?
No. Well, I will explain on the next slide. Go ahead, Sam. Finish this one.
Okay.
So the point here is once it triggers off that set timeout, it's going to go down to the next task queue, and then it's going to wait until everything's done on the first task queue, and then the next task queue comes up, and we're going to see kind of how that gets a little bit weird here in a minute. So now we have this while. So Sander, tell us about the yellow one.
Well, the yellow one is a while loop that passes time, and it is really doing basically a loop for 1.5 seconds here. And while this happens, the whole stack, the whole JavaScript stack grinds to a halt. It is just waiting for that while loop to finish, and then it goes off. Make it go. So
the orange one is done now. And the green one hasn't even started yet.
Yeah.
But the orange one can't do anything. Why? Because I thought that was really confusing. This is where I was arguing with him. Like, why wouldn't the orange one? Because the orange one is done before the yellow one. So wouldn't the orange one fire off before the blue one? Even before the green one? Are you sure, Sander?
I'm pretty sure. I can show you in a console log if you want. But I really don't need to because it is here already. As I said off on the first slide, JavaScript works top to bottom and will run always to completion. So what happens here, my program, all the console logs and everything will run top to bottom, and it cannot start anything else until my task queue is completed. So I can only start something new when the last console log is done. So,
but Sander, what if the set timeout has like a 0? What if it's like very, very fast?
Doesn't matter because it goes to the next. It goes to the next task queue. Once a task queue is, no matter what. There is one exception. I won't go into that here because it is going to make it even more confusing. But as a general rule, once a program starts, once your function starts running, it goes running. It will stop for nothing. It will run to completion until everything is done. And then it will say to the browser, hey, I'm done. Go do your event loop thingy.
So this is why we decided to visualize this as a Rube Goldberg machine, because we wanted to show that once the little ball rolls off, there's no way it can get back up to that. Sam, play it one more time just because it's cool, will you? So once that little ball rolls off that shelf, it's got to go to the next one. It can't go back up.
No.
Even when it's done. And the orange one's done, and it's sitting down there waiting, and it has to go in order, but it has to be in the order of that shelf, and then nothing else can happen until that little green flag comes up.
Okay. I will go in a little bit about the set timeout we are using. The set timeout is using a callback. There you go, Sam. There is the callback. And the callback, basically, I'm telling an API, a browser API, and in this case, we are using set timeout, but it may also be a HTTP request. It might be something completely different. It is basically an async function somewhere made available by the browser. It may be a HTTP GET. It may be a socket connection. It may be like user clicks. It may be anything. We don't have any influence what is going on behind the curtain. I tell the browser, hey, set timeout. That is probably going to set a timer in the browser somewhere, and that timeouts accept the function. And what the set timeout function does, it keeps a pointer to the function, and when it's time, it will put it on the first going task queue and says, hey, task queue, you need to do this. And that's all set timeout does. And it takes the callback and puts the callback into the next task queue. So the set timeout here is basically any async, anything you can do in the browser. It is something that is out of control of JavaScript, but controlled by JavaScript.
One more thing I want to mention on this slide. I mean, we think this is cool to like visualize it and just kind of like imagine what's happening under the hood, but also like this actually affects the code, and this actually helped Samantha and I understand something we were working on another project, and we were like, oh yeah, remember this code is not going to be right because remember what Sander taught us. So it actually does help. But in this slide, Sam, can you just play it one more time? Because the thing that we're really trying to look at in this slide is that the set timeouts are working right, but the yellow one is really what you want to avoid, right? Because that is keeping everything else from happening. And if that while had been in a set timeout, then everything else could have kept on moving, and then the whole application would be generally faster. Make sense? Any questions so far? We've got a couple more. You want us to keep going? You want us to hold on for a minute?
That was like a mini block. So the name of this talk was Don't Block Your Stack. So this one is one that resolves itself, but we're going to see in a little while one that doesn't resolve itself, that completely breaks the entire application.
Yeah.
My favorite part, the grand finale.
Okay. Really, the while here is not, this is something you're not doing in a normal application. What you're doing is say, hey, I have like 10,000 clients here. I'm going to loop over all of them, do some calculations and so on. And then you ask yourself, hey, why is my mouse not responsive in my application? Yeah, basically because your JavaScript is crunching numbers really, really hard.
You blocked your stack, man.
You blocked your stack. Yeah.
Don't block your stack.
That while loop is exactly what's happening if your mouse won't respond.
Yes. Okay.
All right, what are we looking at here, Sam?
We are looking at one. So we see the orange ball is dispatched first, but due to physics, the green ball will be placed on the second queue first. So even though you have you've got two set timeouts, you've got the orange one and the green one. The first one is 1,000 milliseconds and the second one is 100. So your second set timeout is faster, even though it was dispatched second. So that's what we're looking at.
All right. Simple enough. So this was just an example that we wanted to show to see what would happen. Because once we started into this, it was like, well, what would happen for this? And then we had a couple meetings with Sander. Like, well, Sander, what'll happen with this? And we were running through all the console logs and playing with it, see what would happen. So if one set timeout is longer than the other, then I think that's pretty expected behavior.
That is expected behavior. It's nice to see this visualized. So you know what is a little bit going on. That is really nice, but it is really expected behavior. Yeah.
So then I was like, well, what happens? I'm curious. And I would like to know if anybody would like to guess before we look at the next slide. What happens if the orange timeout never completes? Will it break? What will happen if it just goes away? You see that it breaks?
I know.
What happens if it just goes off into la la land? Hold on, Sam, don't tell him yet. I want to see if anybody wants to guess. What will happen to the orange one? Does anybody know? Will the next shelf slide up like it's supposed to, or will it break? What will happen if the orange never completes? You see that orange ramp that's crooked? It's never going to roll down. Anybody want to guess?
Well, he's gonna break at some point, I guess. He's gonna fill up the memory or something.
I think
It's
that's
just gonna go. Everything's gonna stop. Anybody else got any
I
more
think
guesses?
that the stack is not gonna block. Everything gonna be
It's not
fine
gonna block.
because it's a synchronous call, which is resolving by browser somewhere else, not in the JavaScript main thread.
Okay, so now we have 1 vote for and 1 vote against. We should be taking odds.
I think it's going to block.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think so too.
Can we do a poll, Alex? Can we all like raise our hands and everybody guess just for fun? Because I really honestly didn't know at this point. Sander had me like I was like, Sander, what will happen? And he's like, I don't know. Let's see.
Depends if it's the callback which is blocking it, or the timeout, for example. If you put 1 million seconds.
Well, let's say the it breaks is a function that I'm calling to a server and the server will never respond, or the server just dies, or the connection is broken, or whatever.
Okay.
It's out of our control. We never get any report back.
Should I play?
Yeah,
All
so
right.
I'm voting that our JavaScript may continue only if the browser doesn't break entirely, like no runtime.
And no fire out of the computer. Yeah, if fire starts out of the computer,
Yeah,
we get that later on. That we have slides about that, but
yeah.
Okay, so
All right.
So if the browser
Drum roll,
breaks,
please.
there's no.
As long as the browser doesn't break, it's just going to go off in a la la land. And then what happens to that shelf? There it goes. Okay, so Sam, that was the one that went really fast. Can you play it one more time?
No.
So the orange goes away. The orange ball never completes. It just sits there and it never goes anywhere. But the green ball goes and everything in the top has finished. So the orange ball just fades away and everything completes. So this is pretty simple one. I mean, it was just kind of curious, right? I didn't know one way or the other. It could be either way. But then we were kind of disappointed because we said don't block your stack. Well, it didn't actually block the stack. So I was like, well, either we need to come up with a new name for our talk. So we went back to Sander and we said, Sander, we need to actually break it. Like, how do you break? Like, how do you make everything like melt? And he was like, well, I can't do that because my computer will catch on fire. So we asked Samantha
I took it
to
and I
make
ran.
fire, just like, for fun. Let's see, Sam. What happens if and what would it look like? Well, what would actually happen if
Okay,
that?
so we have an infinite loop on the blue one. So everything's
Yeah.
normal. You've got your web APIs.
Don't
and
try
then
this at home, everybody.
Fire, because
That
this
is-
is where this is not going to resolve. This is it's about as bad as it can be, and your web
this is the
pages-
moment your fan starts to spin up, and if you leave it long enough there, or if you are using an Apple device, it will go up in flames. Sorry.
It will go up in flames. So,
And this is basically like the yellow one, like that yellow one that paused everything and made everything slow down and everybody had to wait for it. This is like that, except it never ends. So it's just
Wow.
going to keep going and going. And Samantha had a lot of fun with the fire.
indeed, yes.
Yeah. If you block your stack, your entire browser will grind to a halt, and it will not process any user inputs anymore. It will not handle any. Well, it will handle a couple of things, but it will never resume the event loop. So nothing gets updated anymore. Browsers are getting smarter about this, though. They work a little bit around it, but don't block your stack, because it really kills the performance of your application, and it kills your application nevertheless.
Will it
Do
also
this.
affect? Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Will it also affect the other tabs? Let's say you have other tabs open.
No, in modern browsers, it will not affect other tabs. In the past,
Unless
it
it
did.
catches on fire.
Unless
Yeah.
your machine's on fire.
Yeah, unless your
If you
machine is on
keep fire-
fire. No, it doesn't affect other stacks. It did in the past, though. If you're going back to a couple of versions, I think Netscape, I think Firefox 3 or 4, when you had something like this in one of the tabs, the entire browser became unresponsive.
Can't we just tell the client that it's not a bug, it's a feature?
Yeah, it's like instant heating.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in the wintertime, this would be great.
click here for winter.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we move on, does anybody have any questions? I think this is pretty, I mean, it's hopefully the visuals make it very, very simple to understand, and we try to make it as simple as possible. We just thought this was fun, kind of visualize, and it's kind of inherent to JavaScript. So I thought it was really interesting because I've been writing JavaScript, like I said, for years, and I did not understand this at all. So I needed Samantha, but with Samantha's help, hopefully now we all understand it.
Yeah, Sam, you did a great job on the illustrations. Great work.
Thank you very much.
This was actually her first time ever creating Fire. Okay, so next, Sam, can you go to the next slide? So I want to just touch briefly on, oh yeah, more Fire. That was fun. Was that the terminal log? Yes. So I want to talk just real briefly about what we're working on right now over at angularnation.net. Samantha and I actually use illustrations and animations like this to teach Angular, and this is something that we've kind of just started with. We have an architect course, and then we're right now working on our DOM manipulation course, and it's not finished yet, and it's actually taking a little bit longer than we thought because we made some changes and added some stuff. But we have a couple of exclusive sneak previews of what Samantha's working on next, if y'all want to see that.
So the course we're currently working on is DOM manipulation, advanced DOM manipulation. This is an example of why you should not use impure pipes. So quickly, if there we go.
If we just click on one pipe,
yeah,
what we're showing here is that it's gonna, go ahead, Sam.
If you click on one thing, it's gonna update the entire page. It's gonna refresh, it's gonna run through every single one of these. The pipe is gonna run everything every time anything is clicked.
Look at that.
So that's not great.
This is why you want to avoid impure pipes.
Every time you click something. Now this is obviously slowed down very slow because Angular is wicked fast and you can't even perceive usually the these changes like this, but you know, just to visualize what's actually happening under the hood when you load the not into the hood. It's very much right there on your page. There's a flash when anything's clicked, and that's because all of these are being re-rendered. So don't use them.
Show him the robot, Sam.
Okay, the robot. So this is a happy robot.
I love this guy.
Good. This robot is a robot that is not stressed because the TypeScript is dealing with everything it should be, and the HTML, there is a good separation of concern. MVC is alive and well, and that's a happy robot. Now, this is not a happy robot. This is when we talk about nesting structural directives and how at runtime, nesting structural directives, like, yeah, it might work, you know, it works, but should you? So this is what the DOM looks like. Now it's working, but you've got to stress DOM, and that's not what you want. So we want to avoid we want this robot, right? We want this happy little guy. We want a happy robot. And so our DOM manipulation course is all about how to keep your robot happy.
Yeah. And just to clarify about nesting structural directives, I don't want to confuse anybody because you absolutely can nest structural directives. They work just fine. But if you get into, like, it can get messy if it, you know, gets out of hand. So that's what we're trying to explain. But really, the visuals are to help remember everything because, and it's just, everything is much more fun when we get Samantha involved, because if I were teaching the course without Samantha, I would share my screen and I would show you VS Code. And that would be like, all the tutorials are like VS Code. Maybe you might get a little diagram here and there, but generally it's VS Code in the browser. And then Sam comes in and makes robots.
There's actually a DOM built with all of this functionality that we're teaching. So I handle the visuals, and I don't want to call you mom, but Bonnie handles all of the code for it. So we actually have this live working UI with all of these features, and then the robot with the right alongside it. So.
And one of the things that we're going over, like switch case and component factory resolver and like all these different, you know, host factories and directives and crazy, just basically anything you can do to
Lifecycle
do crazy stuff in the DOM. But then Alex Rickabaugh was on Angular Nation the other night, and he said, you don't even need component factory resolver anymore with Ivy. And I was like, wait, what? So we have to go back and redo that part of the course and update it. But it's like, this is like the latest stuff, right? So,
breaking edge, cutting edge.
Yeah. And then Sam needed an upgrade in her GPU. So anyway, we just wanted to show you like the latest, what she's been working on. She's been having a lot of fun, and we were hoping, I think we're going to have this done hopefully by the end of the month. Are we still on track for that?
I hope so.
We thought we would have it done by now, but we're not done yet. But you guys saw, like, this one actually is what she was working on today. So this is the latest and greatest. So that's what we're doing. We have a few more weeks to work on this, and then we'll release this. So if anybody wants to come and learn with us, it's super fun. Mostly because of Sam, but I actually also have live working code that you can take and use in your own projects too for that.
Very cool.
So that's what we're doing.
It's from the same enterprise project I got my code from.
Yeah, you can see the lorem ipsum in there. Okay, what about Sander? What's Sander working on these days?
Sander,
you may know Sander because he wrote Scully. He basically.
I wrote most of Scully.
That's like a little side project that has become into a pretty big project. The Angular team now is working with you on this, and it's like, we're going to have to start being nicer to you, Sander.
Yeah.
So,
I cannot disagree with that.
Come on, go on, Bonnie.
I was just going to say, we have like 1 or 2 more slides, which are basically just bloopers. And then we have some more time, I think. And I know you guys, unless you have questions about the JavaScript stuff that we talked about, we could open it up, because if you have any questions about Scully, Sander knows a little stuff. And so he could talk a little bit about Scully, because it hasn't really been out that long. It's kind of new. So Sam, why don't we go through and we'll just talk through the bloopers real quick, and then we can open it up to more discussion. So this was when we first started talking about this. Sander, tell him about the ice cream scooper dude.
Yeah, when I initially wanted to explain it to Bonnie, I went with the ice scoop guy, basically an ice cream salesman that was going like in his cart, and there was a line, and he was walking in it on his own, doing all the jobs. And then I wanted to go like, okay, if you want to fan out, if you want to make it faster, because there is a long line and there is only one dude doing all the work, you need to separate the work into multiple jobs and introduce some kind of parallelism. And I was going there, but it became hairy really, really quickly. So we went to another sample where we go to a kitchen where there was a chef and the nice tickets.
And instead of the fire, when you block your stack, the chef goes outside and smokes a cigarette and cries. We were getting a real big kick out of ourselves, but it was really getting confusing. And like, how is this related to Java? It was just getting more and more complicated. It was like, okay, wait, stop. So we had to back up and kind of rethink it. And that's when we came up with the machines.
Yeah,
but it was fun. We wanted to show you the process.
Visualizing this stuff is hard. It seems really simple if you see it. And once you have seen it, it makes it easier to make a new visualization. But to come up with one from zero is kind of hard.
We just wanted to show you the process. And it actually got to the point where Sam was drawing drafts of this, because we had several meetings about the kitchen and how the kitchen was going to work. It was a lot. And then Sam, what is that on the right?
Well, I was trying to show a broken, when the stack is blocked, what happens? And things were flying. It was crazy. But I think the best part was when I first learned, we had the original meeting about this, and he goes, "So what do you think is going to happen?" And I said, "This is what I think is going to happen." And he goes, "No." And he
that is my evil grin from back when I could get a haircut.
This is why we stopped, and this is why I wanted to stop and ask you guys, what do you think is going to happen? Because that face that Samantha made is the same face that I made when I was arguing with Sander. And I was like, what do you mean? Because the orange one is going to go before the blue one. And he's like, no, it's not. And I'm like, well, okay, wait. Make the orange one 0. And he was like, okay. And it still went after and I was like, what the heck, Sander? So we just wanted to share that moment with you because I was grabbing that screenshot right at the same time because I was laughing at her face.
I was saying, no way. It doesn't work like that.
Good times.
So, thank you. We will see
In
you soon.
conclusion, don't contradict Sander. He knows what he's talking about.
Yes, don't question Sander. That's what we've learned.
Well, no, actually, I have to say, do question Sander because Sander is very patient. Well, sometimes. He is always patient. He probably doesn't have time to answer everybody's questions all the time, but it is good to question Sander because then you learn a lot of stuff.
Thank you, Sander.
We appreciate you, Sander.
Thank you.
And thank you, Samantha. You're the one who did all the work in this.
Yeah, this was the easiest talk I ever done because no slides. I don't have to talk because I have Bonnie. So
you have to show up.
I just show up and be pretty.
The best never talks.
Bonnie, can you please mention the Angular Nation because folks might not know what's about?
Oh, I would love to. Actually, I could share my screen if you want and just show you. Let me pull it up real quick and put it over here.
Scoop.
Yeah, I didn't know, and I saw it on one of your talks. I can't remember. It was the one with the forms to dynamically do the form stuff, and that's where I've seen it first time. And yeah, it was awesome to join you.
Thank you. I'm glad. Can you see this?
Let me stop sharing.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, can see now.
Okay, so basically Angular Nation, it looks a little bit like Twitter, but and it's got this basically the interface, like this is our activity feed. This I just posted like right before, like 20 minutes ago, something like that. Oh no, it was posted an hour ago. Basically it's just Angular updates. We have meetup people. We started a couple of groups just because everybody's like kind of like this, right? Everybody's isolated with the coronavirus, and so we have groups. We have a lot of events where we just like randomly jump into calls, and we have guests, and we have people come and talk to us. The thing is, though, because like I love the Twitter for Angular. I've been following a lot of people on Angular on Twitter for a long time, and that was working really well. But the last couple of years, as you know, social media has gotten very stressful because there's a lot of propaganda. There's some really shady stuff going on with they're feeding us all kinds of, I'm not even gonna get into politics, but you know what I mean, right? So this is, but even without that, one of the things that I found was a problem with Twitter was when I found an article, because I found a lot of articles that I really liked, right? But then going back and looking for something like 3 months later, or even if it's like a picture that someone posted and I want to snag it and put it in my slides. And I was going back and like, you can't find anything, right? So we've got the activity feed. I think it's a little slow when I'm in a thing, but what I like about this interface is that we have topics. So basically all of the articles, like say we want to find whoever's talking about Angular tips, right? Then we can go in there and we can see like everything that everybody's posted that's related to Angular tips. We have Ask an Angular GDE every month hosted by Sander. This was actually Sander's idea, just to have like a random call every month where people can come and ask us questions. So we have the topics where you can actually find things that people post articles, and then you just, and we have kind of a lot of, let me just scroll down so you guys can see examples of some of the topics that we have. Authentication, cloud and serverless, community stuff. We have lots of community topics. Contributing to Angular. We have I think we have a Scully topic. We have an RxJS topic. We have state management, Ivy, that kind of thing. And then also we have channels, which are like breakout rooms. They're like smaller. I have some channels that have not been launched yet. So you guys are seeing some stuff that's invisible. This brand new mentor matching, we're about to launch a mentor matching program that's going to be free. We're going to have a channel for mentors and proteges with a little bit of accountability to make sure that when you're assigned a mentor that they actually follow up with you and help you and stuff like that. But as you can see, it's secret because it hasn't been launched yet. But we have a bunch of, we meet every Friday night in Angular Air. We meet every Wednesday in Angular APAC. We have Angular in Italian. We have Angular Africa, Angular in Espanol, which Perez Golea is on the call with us tonight. He's the host over there. Anyway, so the point is we have a bunch of different channels. We have home. And that's basically Angular Nation. It's
home.
and we have, well, home is the, oh, and one more thing. We have courses which are not, there's not a whole lot there right now because Samantha and I are because it's all new, right? We're making courses. We have an architect course that we run, and we have a couple of courses that are under that are still being worked on. I shouldn't really show you all that, but we have a couple of free courses in here. Anyway, we're still working on all of that. There's a lot more. We basically, it takes time to put together curriculum, but we're running courses. There's a free schematics course, a free RxJS course. There's more courses coming. But in the meantime, pretty much all of that, except for there's a couple premium courses, but other than that, all of this is free. And you just need an email address. Go to angularnation.net, put in your email address, and then an actual human, usually Jeffrey Bosch, will click the button and then approve you. So it takes a little bit of time. Usually at least once a day, Jeffrey will go and let in everyone who's waiting. So it doesn't take very long, but it's only private because we have a code of conduct and we just want everybody to be nice. That's basically the rule. Don't spam us with ads and be nice. That's all the rules. But other than that, yeah, it's there and you can sit with us, you can join us, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah, it is. I love it. It made a big change for me as well, to connect with all of you guys, and to find help quick as well. The mentoring idea, that's really awesome. I think, yeah, there's a lot of sharing, can be, from, all of us, which are kind of not experts, but we know more than others. So we definitely can share back, and yeah, it's awesome. Everybody's really nice. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And there's a professional networking channel. If you are looking for a job or if you're hiring Angular developers, you can go to the professional networking channel and you can post and you can look at other people's posts. And if you find a job that you want to apply for, or if you want to find somebody you want to talk to, you just reach out to them directly. Like, you don't have to do anything. I'm not doing anything. It's just there for y'all to go and find each other and talk to each other. It's free. There's a Call for Papers channel, which which actually Alex and Jeffrey both will keep an eye on. There's some other meetup organizers too. So you can go there if you are interested in doing meetup talks like this. And that's it. Yeah. Awesome. Definitely join and spread the word. Yeah. Awesome. Any questions then? Oh, well, we said we're going to have the Sanders about... I know we're out of time for tonight, but if you guys ask him to, you could probably get Sander to come back and actually do like a Scully intro/demo. That'd be awesome. Yeah,
I can do an intro. Yeah, no problem. I can answer some questions now. We have a couple of minutes left, so I cannot really present anything in like a couple of minutes, but I can answer questions. So if anyone has questions, they might be about Scully, they might be about Angular or whatever they think I know something about, just shoot and I will try to answer. Okay, I have one. I start with the Scully one. What's the difference between Scully and rendering, using the Angular universal server-side rendering? Yeah. Yeah, Angular Universal does server-side rendering, which means that you have to have a server that is available and runs a node application that turns into your Angular pages. Well, Scully is taking your application, it visits all the routes and writes out static files for every route on beforehand during development or during CI/CD. That means that everything is pre-rendered and you end up with a Jamstack ready site that you basically can host on GitHub pages or Netlify, or AWS or wherever you want to host static files, because it is just a bunch of static files and you don't need a server anymore. You can even embed data that you're normally getting from an API server. You can embed those into your pages directly, and you don't need to talk to the API server after that anymore. So that's awesome. What sort of apps apart from blogs, which probably is one of the most use cases, and what sort of other apps can you see it very suitable? Well, basically all commerce applications, documentation, basically anything where you want to have like proper SEO, because if it's a gem stack, it is very searchable by search engines, not only Google, and Google will do some of the JavaScript, but most search engines don't. And you will get proper scores everywhere. You get proper analytics, and that helps a lot if you want to promote your site. If your site is highly interactive, so if you have everything behind a login and it is tailored for every user differently, yeah, then Scully nor server-side rendering are the correct solution for you.
Cool, thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question.
I just
but it's
approved
not
a new
related to the
member.
talk. Oh. Sander, is there a limit to the queue? I mean, a size limit to the queue?
For
like before
JavaScript?
creating another queue, another shelf. Is there
No, there is no limit. There is no hard limit to the queue, but basically there is a time limit. You should be able to complete your entire thing within more or less 4 milliseconds. You have up to 16, but there are a couple of more things the browser needs to do. So it should be ready in 4 milliseconds. If you're going over every now and then, that is not a problem because it will go in other things. But if you're really, really going over like 16, the user is going to notice jank. You know what jank is? If the site is not really, it feels not responsive, that is generally...
Is that a technical term, Sander?
Yes, very technical term. I learned it on the internet, so it is a technical term.
It's legit.
It's legit, yeah, totally. But you will experience jank. You will have like a shakiness to your application. So you should keep your things short and sound. For all milliseconds sounds like a short time. I can tell you it's not that short. Just a couple of days ago, I did a test on my computer and I basically did a loop that did something for like a millisecond. How often do you think you can run such a loop?
4 milliseconds? Every 4 milliseconds.
No, I created a loop that lasted 1 millisecond. I just say, hey,
Okay.
loop for a millisecond. How many loops, how many iterations do you think you can do in such a loop?
4.
How many times can you loop 1 millisecond?
In 1 millisecond,
Before it,
yeah.
before it melts?
No, just... Sorry. It's a trick question, by the way, because it really, really, really depends on your computer. If you have a really, really slow computer, it might be 1. If you have a computer like mine, well, my answer on my computer was like 2000. So I looped for 1 millisecond and I had like 2000 iterations of a loop. And I was doing actually an array assignment, a calculation, and another update. So I was actually doing work. So it depends. On most modern computers and phones and stuff, you can do like 400 to 600 loops a millisecond, which is a boatload of code. So
does it also depend on the memory allocation and other stuff that the computer gives to this specific program that we call browser?
Not really, unless you are allocating a lot of memory. If you are allocating memory, that is an expensive operation. And if you're allocating more memory than the computer has readily available, it will go slower. So then the number of iterations go down. But the amount of memory has very little impact on the amount of memory has no impact on the speed of the loop. It has implications for your application and the whole system, because if you have level memory, there is less caching, there is less of everything basically, so it will go a little bit slower, but it has nothing to do with this thing.
I see.
I think we're out of time, but I just want you see now you spend a few minutes with Sander and you understand the beauty of asking Sander questions because it's so cool. So I just want to remind you guys that on January 26th, we have Ask an Angular Expert, which was Sander's idea and Sander's hosting. And it's basically just come and ask Sander questions because it's fun. So by the time Angular 26 gets, January 26 gets here, you guys can have questions ready and come and ask him. And I think we're going to do that every month because it's really fun asking Sander questions. He's got so much stuff in his brain. And what do you guys think about Scully? Do you guys want to hear more about Scully? Do you want him to come back and just do like a total Scully episode? How do you feel?
Yeah, awesome. That would be awesome.
A total Scully thing, it would be mind blown.
All right, the ayes have it, Sander.
Okay,
And
great.
now, okay, I'm just going to throw this out here, Sander.
I hate
hope it's
spare
okay
time
with my
anyway.
notes, Sander. If anyone is interested in Scully and wants to volunteer as tribute, if you actually do the talk with him and you prepare the slides, he will provide the tech support and walk you through it and kind of make sure that everything understands it. Does anybody want to volunteer? Huh?
I highly recommend it. It's a great deal.
He will make you do all the work, but you'll learn a lot. So it's fun.
You get to be on stage with Sander. I mean,
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm lazy as hell. I will provide tech support. I will answer all your questions, but you have to do all the work.
But smart as hell.
All right. Well, if anyone wants to volunteer to help out with that talk.
Yeah, to me sounds like a great idea.
Okay. Sander, have you met Fanis?
I don't think so. We might be...
He's one of the co-organizers of Angular Greece. He's so cool, Sander. You're going to love him. He's actually going to be an Angular GDE, I predict, very soon. But, you know, we can't say officially yet. But you're going to love him. I'm so excited about this little introduction here. You guys are going to be friends. I can feel it now. I know stuff like this.
To me, it sounds like a very good idea. And yeah, since my plan was to learn more about Scully, so yeah, why not? I can do all the job, and maybe Sander, I will bombard you with questions.
No problem.
Sander, you're going to really like his visuals too. He is a really good teacher, and he's very good at breaking things down and making them visual. I don't know if he's like on Sam's level, but he's really, really, really good, and he's a lot of fun, and you're going to like him a lot. And this is great. So, okay, so Fanis and Sander, y'all can go off and talk, and then Alex and Jeffrey. Well, when you're ready, let Alex and Jeffrey know, and they'll put you on the calendar. This is perfect.
I'll be back here.
No, I need already booked Fanis. Sorry.
Yeah. And also, when Samantha and I finish our DOM manipulation course, maybe we'll come back and give you guys a little bit more of a preview with that. Or you can go join us on Angular Nation, and we're going to launch it. And you can sign up probably in about 2 weeks.
Awesome. Then I think we're gonna wrap it up here. I just want to thank you again, Bonnie, Sam, Sanders, Jeffrey, for helping me when putting all this together. It's been awesome. I think, yeah, it's a great idea, Bonnie. So thank you again. Thank you to all the attendees. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something today. I hope you joined Angular Nation. It's awesome. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye.